So, good afternoon, everyone. This afternoon, we'll be discussing about globalization and media, creating the global village. So, here are the learning outcomes. At the end of the chapter, 90% of the students should be able to define globalization and media from their etymological and historical development, explain the relation of globalization and media in the development of the modern world, and elaborate the contributions and theories of the various scholars in relation to globalization and the modern world. So first, let's discuss the nature of globalization. So, globalization was said to begin a few decades ago, specifically in the late 1900s, when the advancement in media and transportation technology globalized the world. So we know that globalization means that the world is becoming more interconnected and interdependent. So, gidiscuss na ni sa mga previous reporters, and these happened because of things like better transportation, easier communication through media, and more people moving around the world. And Arjun Napadurai, a cultural anthropologist, said that naay dakong kabag-uhan on how people live in the late 20th century. So basically, according to Arjun Appadurai, globalization is when people, ideas, and cultures from different parts of the world mix and affect each other. And when did globalization begin? So, um, I agree that globalization isn't something that suddenly started at a particular point in history. Instead, it's a process that has been ongoing for centuries, and di na to mapinpoint when did it started. But some scholars point events like the Enlightenment or the Age of Exploration. It includes katong niabot si Columbus sa Amerika, which gave significant moments which mark nga mao daw ang pagsugod sa globalization according to scholars. And napoy uban nituo nga globalization traces back even further when ang mga Homo sapiens is ni-move out from African village para mangitag food or water or adventure. And according to Yalis Nayan Chanda states that globalization is a process that has worked silently for millennia without having been given a name, and that as a trend. Globalization has been with us since the beginning of history, and yes, according to Yalis Nayan Chanda, globalization has been happening for ages, but nigamit tag term nga globalization to describe it sa karon nga panahon. So basically, globalization has been happening for a really long time, and it changed a lot over the years. So different important events have pushed it forward, but it's been part of human history from the beginning. So the historical roots of globalization is highly arguable. Many scholars regard globalization as having an ancient history, which encompasses all international human activities. And during the Hellenistic Age, a long time ago, there was something called archaic globalization. Um, it happened when big cities became centers of trade and culture like Alexandria. Yeah. Unya, the Greeks had a big influence spreading their culture from India to Spain. Trade was important, especially along the Silk Road, connecting places like Rome, the Persian Empire, and China. So Greek ships played a big role in the archaic globalization, with hundreds sailing between Greece, Rome, and India each year. Each boat or kanang ships carried lots of goods like 300,000 tons every year. Then, during the Islamic Golden Age, there was another phase of globalization. So, Jewish and Muslim traders and explorers connected trade routes. They spread agriculture trade, knowledge, and technology. So, um, agriculture such as kanang sugar, cotton became popular in the Muslim world, and people also learned a lot about Arabic language and the Hajj pilgrimage, leading to a diverse culture. So, um, maize, tomato, potato, vanilla, rubber, cacao, and tobacco um, where new crops from America were introduced to Japan by Portuguese ships during the 17th century, which influences the Japanese art. So globalization is like a coin with two sides. So on the first side, globalization has the tendency towards homogeneity, synchronization, integration, unity, and universalism. And in this side of a coin, these are the benefits or the advantages brought by globalization. And on the other side, there is the propensity also for localization, heterogeneity, differentiation, diversity, and particularism, which are obstacles to development, and obviously those are the advantages of globalization. And according to Jack Lull, globalization could not occur without media. Human beings have used media to explore, settle, and globalize the world since the ancient times. So, according to Jack Lull, um, without media, globalization could not occur. Or so it emphasizes that media has been with humans since the ancient times, and that it has been used to explore, settle, and globalize the world. And in this chapter, we will be discussing about the pairing of globalization and media. So let's discuss the definition of media. So the word media is the plural form of medium, which means a way of communicating something. It serves as a channel. So it is very masabtan ra ag ijang meaning. So people started using the term media more commonly in the 1920s because they needed a word to talk about new social issues, like concerns about young people reading violent comics. Even though the word is relatively new, humans have been using different ways to communicate since the beginning of time. And now let's proceed to the evolution of media. Then, Canadian theorist Harold Innis, writing in the 1940s and 1950s, divide media into three time period. And these are oral, print, and electronic. And additionally, James Lull, writing at the close of the 20th century, added digital to those three. So, lastly, Terhi Rantanen places script before the printing press and breaks down the electronic period into wired and wireless, which totals to six periods. However, it was only the five time periods functionally captured the study of globalization and media. So, here are the five evolution of media. First is the oral communication. And we are very familiar with oral communication. So, oral communication or speaking has been around for about 200,000 years, making it the oldest and most important way people have communicated. And kahibaw ta nga, until now, we use oral communication gihapon. Through language, oral communication uses language, and language help people to work together, share information about their surroundings, and spread technology. And language also helped humans settle in one place, share knowledge about farming, and eventually trade goods and services with each other. And tungod pod sa language or the oral communication, nabuo ang first human civilizations like the one in Sumer around 4000 BCE. Next time period is the script or writing. Script or writing changed how people communicated by allowing them to share knowledge and ideas over long distances and time periods. So, it started with cave paintings and symbols carved into clay tablets around 3000 BCE. These symbols evolved into alphabets, which are the letters we use to represent sounds in languages, and still we use script or we use writing in communicating with other nowadays. Yeah. People people use different materials to write on, like wood, clay, and eventually papyrus, a plant found in Egypt, which is where we get the word paper from. So, writing helped civilizations like Egypt, Greece, Rome, and China grow and connect with each other, leading to what we call globalization. Next time period is the printing press. So, the printing press changed the world by making it easier and cheaper to produce books and documents. So, before the printing press has been invented or kanang gipagawas, only rich or katurang mga dato or powerful people has the control of information. But because of printing press, regular people could read and write too, spreading knowledge and ideas to everyone. These led to big chances in economic and These led to big changes in economics, culture, and politics all over the world. Ja. Historians found that the printing press played a big role in events like the Enlightenment, the Protestant Reformation, and the Scientific Revolution. It also helped preserve knowledge and allowed different viewpoints to challenge political and religious leaders. So next time period, then evolution of media is the electronic media. Electronic media refers to forms of communication that use electricity, and it is very masabtan ra ag meaning since the name is electronic media, so it uses electricity, of course. So electronic media such like the telegraph, telephone, radio, film, and television. Yeah. Telegraph was invented by Samuel F.B. Morse, which allow people to send messages quickly over long distances using electrical lines. And later, the telephone invented by Alexander Graham Bell let people talk to each other over the phone. And radio broadcasts began in the 1920s, bringing music and news into people's home. Films also became popular with silent movies in the early 1900s and later. Longer narrative films capturing audiences worldwide. And after World War II, televisions became common in households, allowing people to see and hear stories from around the world. This led to the idea of the global village where people all over the world are connected through media. The last time period, or the fifth time period, of the evolution of media is the digital media. So, digital media are forms of communication that use digital codes, like computers. They have had a big impact on globalization in different areas. Like for example, in economics, global trading happens all the time because of digital technology. Additionally, in politics, computers give people access to information from all over the world, and in culture, people can learn about and try new things from different parts of the world like music, sports, and education, kaya it has been made available globally through digital information, right? And next will be the global imaginary and global village. So, scholar Manfred Steger has called a rising global imaginary the globe itself as imagined community. In the past, only few privileged people thought of themselves as cosmopolitan citizens of the world. So, through media, people all over the world learn about the world and imagine themselves as part of it. This creates what Manfred Steger calls a global imaginary, where people see the world as a connected community. This idea being connected globally is now a common part of modern life. So, Manfred Steger mentioned cosmopolitan. So, what is cosmopolitan? So, cosmopolitan refers to persons who adhere to the idea of cosmopolitanism. So, what is cosmopolitanism? Cosmopoliti- Cosmopolitanism is the ideology that all human beings belongs to a single community based on a shared morality. So next is um, the political scientist Benedict Anderson. He focuses about the origin of nations and nationalism. So, political scientist Benedict Anderson talked about how nations are formed by people imagining themselves as part of a group bisan nagkalagyo-lagyo sila. And nasa jay um, line or statement dire. The fellow members of even the smallest nation will never know most of their fellow members, meet them, or even hear of them. Yet in the minds of each lives, the image of the communities are to be distinguished not by their falsity or genuineness, but in the style in which they are imagined. Benedict Anderson imagined communities, reflection on the origin and spread of nationalism. So next, the point of view of Arjun Appadurai. So, 1996, Arjun Appadurai in 1996 has argued the imagination is not trifling fantasy but a social fact and a staging ground for action. And this statement of Arjun Appadurai kanang means that imagination isn't just a fantasy, but it is a fact and it's important for how people act in society. And let's move to the Marshall McLuhan point of view of Global Village. So, media scholar Marshall McLuhan anticipated this phenomenon with his argument that media had connected the world in ways that create a global village. So, Marshall McLuhan talked about how media have made the world feel like a global village where everyone is connected and can share their ideas on specific topic. And McLuhan felt that the global village would bring about an utopia. So, when we say utopia, it describes an imaginary community or society that possesses highly desirable or near perfect qualities for its members. So next is uh, we become what we behold. We shape our tools and thereafter our tools shape us, according to Marshall McLuhan. Next is the next is Louis Mumford 1970 to found utopian hope in media technology. However, Mumford watched with dismay as media was used instead for capitalism, militarism, profit, and power. So, some people saw utopia as a good thing, but others, like Louis Mumford, worried that media would be used to profit and power instead of creating a better world. And it is indeed used for capitalism, militarism, profit, and power, which make or made Mumford or which disappoint Mumford. What the- And Mumford became one of McLuhan's most ferocious critics. And that ends my part, and I'll give the floor to Rowelyn de la Cruz to discuss or to continue with the discussion about our topic.
So now let's proceed to the connections between media and globalization. So mass media play a crucial role in enhancing globalization by facilitating cultural exchanges and information flows between countries. So mass media, including television, internet, and social media, play a crucial role in the process of globalization. They serve as channels through which cultural exchanges and the flow of information between countries are facilitated. For example, someone in Japan can easily watch American movies while people in the US can access news from the India through the internet. Global communication technologies evolved rapidly from the telegraph to modern mass circulation press, radio, and satellite communication. Basically, globalization and media are closely connected. As we moved into the 21st century, communication technology rapidly evolved, starting things with telegraph and postal services. So, through the evolution of communication technologies, it has further accelerated the process of global media dissemination. So, this allowed for easier communication across borders through things like telephones, radio, and other technologies. Cultural imperialism theories highlight inequalities between nations, especially in terms of media representation and economic dependency. However, the concept of cultural imperialism highlights inequalities between nations, particularly in terms of media representation and economic dependencies. Like, for example, Hollywood movies dominate cinemas worldwide, making it difficult for local films from other countries to gain attention. Hybridation concept suggests that global culture blends with local traditions, leading to hybrid cultural forms rather than homogenization. Despite this, the concept of hybridation, or when we say hybridation, global culture does not necessarily replace local cultures but rather blends with them, leading to the creation of unique cultural identities rather than complete homogenization. Criticism towards hybridity includes the concern about economic power and the commodification of cultural practices by giant media corporations. Yet, critics raise concerns about economic power and the commodification of cultural practices by large media corporations. This means that traditional cultural elements such as African clothing designs may be mass produced without proper acknowledgement of their origins. Um, Media globalization challenges rigid cultural assumptions and promotes cosmopolitan sensibility by showcasing diverse perspectives. The media globalization also challenges rigid cultural assumptions and promotes a cosmopolitan sensibility by showcasing diverse perspectives. So, for example, documentaries about life in remote villages can change how urban dwellers perceive rural communities. Media institutions, policy, and corporate dominance significantly shape the nature and distribution of media content globally. So, one example of this is the government. So, they may restrict access to certain websites or TV channels to control the flow of information within their countries. So, overall, the connection between media and globalization is complex, involving various dynamics such as cultural exchange, power struggles, and the influence of technology and policy. So now let's proceed to globalization of media. Sparks 2000 argues that media globalization isn't truly global, citing audience limitations in language, wealth, and size. So Sparks suggests that despite the term globalization, media isn't truly global because it's limited by factors such as language barriers, economic disparities, and audience size. This means that even though media reaches many places, not everyone can access or understand it. For example, someone in a small village might not have internet access to watch YouTube, and this means that it could be the limited access to global media content, especially in rural areas of developing countries due to lack of infrastructure and resources. Globalization seen as a positive force integrating societies into a global village, but driven by intentional decisions of influential groups like nations, corporations, and organizations. So, globalization is driven by a powerful group. So, big countries, companies, and organizations make decisions that spread media around the world. Think of how Hollywood movies are watched everywhere because they're produced by major studios in the US. Griaco and Holmes' 1999 note globalization is driven by interests of rich world, emphasizing its economic aspects. So, rich countries control globalization. Wealthy nations influence what media gets spread globally, often focusing on making money. For example, big companies might sell their TV shows and movies to other countries where people can afford to buy them. Language acts as a barrier to media imports, influencing trade relations in television and film. People prefer media in their own language, so it affects what gets imported and exported. For example, if we are watching Korean TV shows or K-dramas, it might not do well for us if it's not dubbed or subtitled in English or Filipino. We are not able to understand in the shows or dramas that we are watching. So it means that language can be a barrier. Cultural aspects such as jokes, slang, and historical references crucial in defining audiences beyond language barriers. So, culture is important. So, jokes, slang, and historical references make media relatable to different audiences. So, for example, a comedy show from the UK might not be funny to someone in Japan because of cultural differences. Economic and organizational forces drive cultural globalization, with dominance in global media more economic than cultural. So, economics drive cultural globalization. Money and how media businesses are organized play a big role in spreading culture globally. For example, big streaming platforms like Netflix have a huge influence because they can afford to produce and distribute content worldwide. Challenges in globalization include transborder data flow, cultural imperialism, and adapting to local cultures. Challenges include adapting to local cultures. Media companies struggle to fit their content to different cultures while keeping it profitable. For example, McDonald's changes its menu in different countries to match local tastes. Next, Concerns about cultural erosion and change due to unequal media flows, particularly from dominant Western nations. So, concerns about cultural erosion. Some worry that global might wipe out local cultures or change them too much. For example, small countries might lose their own movies and music if everyone starts watching Hollywood blockbusters and listening to American pop music. Cultural imperialism theory posits domination of global economic system by advanced countries leading to homogenization of global culture. So, cultural imperialism. This theory says that powerful countries spread their culture around the world, making other cultures less important. For example, people might start wearing jeans and eating fast food everywhere because of the influence of American culture. So now let's proceed to media and economic globalization. Media facilitate economic globalization by promoting global capitalism and the concept of market economy. So, media promoting global capitalism. Media like TV, internet, and newspapers often promote the idea that buying and selling goods worldwide is a good thing. For example, advertisements in magazines or on websites often showcase products from different countries, encouraging people to buy them. Next is Mark Chisney 2001 and Herman 1997 described global media as essential for promoting global markets and consumer values, dubbing them the new missionaries of global capitalism. So global media as missionaries of global capitalism. Some scholars say that big media companies act like messengers, spreading the idea that global capitalism, where businesses operate worldwide, is the best way for economies to work. Next, Mark Chesney 2001 and Herman 1997 describe global media as essential for promoting global markets and consumer values, dubbing them the new missionaries of global capitalism. Global media as missionaries of global capitalism. Some scholars say that big media companies act like messengers, spreading the idea that global capitalism, where businesses operate worldwide, is the best way for economies to work. For example, think of how global brands like Coca-Cola or McDonald's are advertised everywhere, so making people all over the world familiar with them. Media corporations as transnational entities embody and celebrate economic globalization primarily driven by profit motives. Media corporations celebrating economic globalization for profit. So big media companies which operate across countries are mainly interested in making money. They often focus on stories or content that they think will attract the most viewers or readers, even it even if it means ignoring important issues in some places. For example, a multinational news network might prioritize covering a celebrity scandal over a serious problem in a small town. Sarikakis 2008 highlights how media transformations in Europe redefine the public as consumers of media services rather than informed and active citizens. So, redefine public as consumers of media services. Some experts say that changes in media in Europe have made people see themselves more as consumers of entertainment rather than active citizens who engage with important social or political issues. So, this means people might spend more time watching TV shows or movies than discussing things like government policies or community problems. Adorno and Horkheimer 2002 argue that the culture industry produces mindless entertainment distracting audiences from critical thinking and political engagement, resulting in a passive, apolitical populace. So, culture industry producing mindless entertainment. Certain scholars argue that the entertainment industry, including movies, TV shows, and music, often creates content that doesn't challenge people to think critically or get involved in politics. Instead, it distracts them with easy to digest entertainment. For example, reality TV shows or repetitive pop songs might keep people entertained without encouraging them to think deeply about important issues. The focus on profit by media conglomerates leads to mass content rather than local content, contributing to what one scholar calls the mass production of ignorance. So focus on profit leading to mass content over local content. When media companies prioritize making money, they might overlook stories or content that are specific to certain communities or regions. Instead, they might produce content that appeals to a broad audience, even if it lacks depth or relevance to local issues. For instance, a global news channel might cover international sports events extensively but give less attention to local community news. Also criticizes the marginalization of issues concerning the world's poor in a global television news agendas, highlighting the poverty of news. So, marginalization of issues concerning the world's poor. Some experts criticize global news networks for not giving enough attention to problems faced by poor people around the world. They argue that these networks often focus in stories that interest wealthier audiences, neglecting issues like poverty or inequality. For example, a major news channel might spend more time covering celebrity gossip than reporting on humanitarian crises in developing countries. FAMI 2010 suggests that despite significant events like 9/11 and subsequent wars, global media coverage often produces limited substantive content, posing the question, how could so much produce so little? So limited substantive content despite significant events. Despite major world events like terrorist attacks or wars, global media coverage might lack in-depth analysis or meaningful discussion. This means that even though a lot of news is reported, it may not provide a deep understanding of what's happening or why. For instance, news reports about a conflict might focus more on dramatic images than on explaining the underlying causes or possible solutions. So now let's proceed to the effects of globalization on mass media. Mass media encompass various forms of communication intended to reach a large audience, including broadcast media such as television, film, radio, print media such as newspapers, magazines, and new age media such as mobile phones, computers, and internet. So, mass media, as I have said, include things like TV, radio, newspapers, and the internet. So, it's how lots of people get information and entertainment. So, globalization involves the increasing interconnectedness of cultures, people, and economic activities facilitated by the reduction of barriers to international trade and the transnational circulation of ideas and cultures. So, we all know that globalization means the world becoming more connected. People, cultures, and businesses from different countries interact more because of fewer barriers. Anthony McGraw views globalization as a multidimensional phenomenon encompassing communication, social, political, and economic dimensions, leading to increased mutual interactions and the creation of a new global system. So, some people see globalization as a big thing with many parts like communication, society, politics, and money. So, it brings people closer together and creates a new global way of doing things. For example, companies like Apple make products in one country, so they sell their products all over the world, and everyone knows about them through advertising their products in the internet. Next is globalization enables the spread of diverse views and information, contributing to democratic processes and influencing non-democratic countries. However, it also raises concerns about cultural imperialism and the erosion of local cultures due to the dominance of Western standards. So, globalization lets different ideas and news spread easily, which can help democracies and influence countries that aren't democratic. But it can also make some cultures less important because Western ideas become more dominant. Like, for example, watching Hollywood movies in countries around the world can make local films less popular. Next is globalization allows for timely access to international news and information, leading to a broad coverage of international media output even at the local level. So, because of globalization, we can easily know what's happening around the world, even if we are in a small town or even if we are in the Philippines. So we can also know what's happening around the world. International news is available everywhere because of TV and the internet. Like, for example, um, we are in the Philippines, so even if there's a big event in another country like tsunami or a political protest or a war between Ukraine and Palestine, we can learn about it quickly through news websites or TV channels. Globalization promotes homogeneity by spreading similar thoughts, principles, and media content worldwide, potentially, potentially leading to communication inequality and challenges to cultural diversity. So, globalization can make everyone think and act more alike, which might not be good for different cultures. So, it can also make it harder for small or less wealthy countries or to those developing countries to share their own stories and ideas. Globalization fosters competition among media sectors, leading to the proliferation of diverse programming and platforms, enhancing democracy and facilitating social interaction. So, um, globalization makes media companies compete more, so there are more choices for viewers. So, this can make democracy stronger and make it easier for people to connect with each other. Like, for example, with streaming services like Netflix and Amazon Prime, there are a lot of different shows and movies to watch, giving viewers more options. Globalization contributes to the empowerment of women and minorities by promoting their rights and facilitating their participation in economic activities and decision making processes. So, globalization can help women and minority groups gain more rights and have more say in important decisions, especially in business and politics. Example: social media campaigns like #MeToo have helped raise awareness about issues like sexual harassment and have led to changes in laws and policies in many countries. Convergence of media technologies.
And this ends our discussion about globalization and media creating the global village. Thank you.